what I wanted to show you guys is sort of a pitfall that a lot of people make a mistake of doing. While this cube looks really cool and it's got straight edges all over the place and it's been wedged, it's not necessarily the shape that you want to be working with when going on the wheel. This big hump that's already been made over here, while it's not perfectly circular, it has been wedged, and it is going to be a lot easier to go and spin around on the wheel because it's already starting to make that circular shape. Now, I wouldn't recommend rolling this into a ball because one of the things that you're going to end up getting is cracks. So make sure while you're wedging everything out, you get rid of as many cracks as you possibly can. And then the area that's going to be attached to the wheel, you flatten out just a little bit by tapping it on the table. Okay, you don't want to have a cube of clay like this because of the edges as they rotate around are going to continue to be a little bit difficult to work with. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're working with pretty wet clay. One issue that I watch a lot of people go into is that they don't wedge the clay well enough to work with it, and they have hard chunks inside. If you haven't wedged your clay well enough, or you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, you might want to pay attention to what the consistency of the clay is, because if it's too hard, it definitely will have air bubbles in it. You'll feel those imperfections in the clay as it's spinning around, and it could cause your project to fall apart. Alright, so you've wedged your clay, you're ready to attach it to the wheel. One of the things I always tell people is make sure that the wheel, obviously the drip guard is put together and it's not going to fall apart. The other thing is make sure that the wheel is clean so that you can actually attach it. You can clean the wheel very simply by getting a sponge wet and giving it a couple spins. Now you'll notice the speed at which I'm spinning the wheel is not super fast. You just have to give it sort of a little push and it'll stay spinning for a pretty good time. And what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a damp sponge and letting the wheel turn itself and the sponge to collect any dust or debris that's on top of the wheel itself. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do once I get this centered, I'll take a picture so you can actually see an overhead view of what I'm talking about. But on top of this wheel, there's little circles engraved into the metal. That sort of serves as your target to make sure that you're aiming for the center of the wheel. Now, one of the things I watch a ton of people do when they try to center the clay, because having centered clay is super important to making sure you get something that's circular, they try to drop the clay as hard as they can on top of it. You don't need to do that. Since I've already wedged this ball of clay and I've got a flat portion right here, all I'm going to do is try to aim for this dot that's in the middle and just drop it down. Now, one of the issues that I have is, no one's going to be able to do this perfect. So as you dropped it, I'll take another picture of this. It's sort of off center. What I'm going to do is just wiggle it over so that I can eyeball it being in the middle, and then I'll start to spin this around and smooth it out with some of the sponge and damp water to make sure that it is in the middle of the wheel before I start any project. Okay?